back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. Today I'm going to be kicking off my reviews of the Doctor Who Big Finish main range for 2018 as I take a look at the first release from the 5th Doctor era, which is The Kingdom of Lies, written by Robert Kahn and Tom Salinsky. A regular thing for the 5th Doctor to kind of start off the year of Big Finish releases. Once again, we have the regular companions returning, and I must say, to start off with, it would be nice to see a slightly different direction took with the 5th Doctor. I think it would be nice to maybe have some standalone episodes, maybe with Nessa, because we previously had the episode last year, Dalek Soul and Alien Heart, or whatever that episode was called. That was the two-part format, and we just had those two together. I think it was quite interesting to see just them sort of developing their characters and kind of having a little bit more space to breathe, because I think that with a TARDIS team this big, it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to allocate each companion kind of a role and get them all to do something. So I think it would be nice to maybe see in the future some more standalone 5th Doctor stories, maybe even bring on a new companion or something like that, but I still think it is nice to see the whole team being reunited for this release. First off, and as always, in the description below I will leave the link to go and buy this release from the Big Finish website. It's currently out now for $14.99, and the download version is of course $12.99. If you are interested by what I say in this review, the digital download of the actual trailer is also on the website as well, so you can listen to that and maybe see if you would like to buy it. Taking a look at some of the technical details on the Big Finish website now for this release. As I was saying, this episode is written by Robert Kahn and Tom Salinsky, which is in fact quite a rare thing to have a co-written story and a co-written one by people that I do believe haven't written for Big Finish before. So yeah, it's quite a rare thing to have newcomers. I do think that this episode is in fact a rather nice one to start on. It's a rather broad story, something in fact which is quite bold for a first episode. I think that writers, when they're new to Big Finish, definitely take a little bit of a back seat, sometimes have a more short trip style format where not much is going on, but this episode definitely delves into it straight away and contributes some interesting ideas to the Doctor Who universe. As always, much like the other 5th Doctor adventures from the previous 2 years, this episode is once again directed by Barnaby Edwards, and we do have the regular production team returning. Taking a look at the characters for this release now, it would of course make sense to start off with the 5th Doctor, played by Peter Davison, and much like within the TV show itself, I actually think that the 5th Doctor has a little bit of an odd place for me. I think that it wasn't exactly too fond of his Doctor within the actual TV show. Not that I didn't like his Doctor, I just think that he didn't really contribute too much to the era, and I think that his stories partly were to blame for that. However, much like the majority of Big Finish classic Doctors, they've gone and really been able to make his character blossom, and they've gone and made him do quite dark things, and then put him in definitely very interesting situations, and this story definitely once again does that. Interesting thing for this release is the Doctor is in fact through the majority of this episode. He doesn't necessarily have a lack in running time, however he takes a little bit of a back seat. I think that this episode is definitely a little bit more based around the companions, and they definitely take a little bit more of the forefront, and they go off and do different things and definitely contribute to the plot, and kind of the 5th Doctor doesn't really have too much to do, and then by the very end of the episode he's the one that kind of takes the brunt of everything and then folds everything together and then sort of delivers the final blow in sort of more senses than one. And I think that this episode is interesting for that, because when you have a very big TARDIS team, as I say, it's quite hard and challenging to make them all do something. However, I think that it is interesting to have the 5th Doctor take a little bit more of a back seat and kind of let all the companions do the work. So yeah, that is an interesting twist for this era, and something of which that maybe I'd like to see developed a little bit more in other stories. Then we have Janet Fielding as Tegan Javanka, and I just don't know what to think of her character. I think that within the actual TV show, she was notorious for being quite annoying, sort of quite loud in parts, and doesn't really understand what's going on. I don't think we had any reference to Heathrow Airport throughout this story, so that is in fact quite a different thing for Doctor Who. This episode does in fact have an interesting idea that is proposed at the very start of the episode, where Adric says, "Do you actually enjoy travelling with the Doctor?" And then she says no to start with, and then says, "Well, yes, I kind of do." And I think that kind of shows that she's kind of getting used to the Doctor and the different adventures, and she's kind of off on a love-hate relationship with the sort of Doctor Who universe. And I do quite like that a lot. I kind of like the backstep with not having Heathrow Airport mentioned every single minute, although it's an ongoing joke with Big Finish and within the actual TV show. It's kind of just a refreshing thing to not have it mentioned, and I think that throughout this episode she had a few interesting parts. I think that when she's with Adric for the majority of this story, definitely those two characters can kind of get along a little bit more and develop a little bit further, which is nice to see, although I don't really think that she had any standout moments. Then we had Adric, once again played by Matthew Waterhouse as per usual. I think that this episode once again continues that theme of the 5th Doctor is kind of his teacher and learning him to do different things. At the very start of this episode we have the Doctor trying to get him to learn how to fly the TARDIS, and then of course Tegan comes in and kind of ruins that near the very end, and once again that's an interesting theme. I like the idea that the Doctor is a little bit of a teacher, something which that has been played with throughout the new series. I think that his role throughout this story is a little bit more of a doctory one. I think that definitely in the situation where it's just him and Tegan, he definitely takes more the lead. He can definitely do more intelligent things and sort of organise what's going on, and he has kind of a little bit of a plan of his own. I do quite like that. I think he's definitely getting a little bit more of a stronger character, which is something of which they didn't really see too much throughout the TV series. And then finally for the companions, we of course have Nessa of Traken, played by Sarah Sutton. And I definitely think through this TARDIS team, Nessa is definitely my favourite. I think that I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for Nessa. I think that I just like her culture and the way that she comes from, and the way that she's sort of technically a little bit of a royal from her own planet. I think that she has some interesting customs to kind of contribute to the Doctor Who universe. And this episode kind of sees her develop her character a little bit further. She takes a little bit more of a forefront, as I say, because she's kind of partnered with the Doctor throughout this story. And immediately at the very beginning, we see her kind of pursuing this raw, darker character and kind of getting into role as this, well, somebody who is hired to basically kill somebody, a hitman. And they're very much taking this role to heart and kind of making other people around believe that she is in fact a person that is going to go out and commit this murder. The final two characters that I kind of want to give mention to in this review, firstly, is Jonathan Firth as Sebastian, also known as Duke of Cardena, and Charlotte Lucas as the Duchess Miranda. And those are basically the main characters for this release, as I get onto in a little bit, because their characters are basically the main pivotal part of the script. They're the main backbone of the story, and they are fun. Both of them contribute some nice things to the role. I think that Charlotte Lucas especially is very funny in parts. She's very comedic, and I think that she is a little bit kind of new series kind of comedy. I think that I definitely could see her in a drama today on TV and actually kind of not look out of place. And the same with the Duke. I think that he's a little bit misunderstood throughout the story, kind of plays a little bit of the dumb male kind of character, but at the same time, at the very end, kind of sort of gets his own character and then sort of shocks everybody and changes a little bit. So I do quite like that, and I definitely think that their contributions to the story are definitely a big part of the episode's effectiveness. Taking a look at the scripting and storyline for the Kingdom of Lies now, this is basically a little bit of a theatrical one. It's a little bit of fun, based around two people that are in a relationship that are the Duke and Duchess of this planet that is a little bit sort of, it's highly developed in technology, however, they're like sort of rather sort of old features, so they're like castles and they're like sort of big massive parades and things like that. It's a little bit kind of medieval, however, with actual technology these days. And I think that the idea is basically you have this relationship that's going down and they've been together for a whole year and they absolutely hate each other pretty much, and both of them want to kill each other. So the majority of the story is spent through this idea of an assassination plot, because you have this 1 year on since the coronation of them coming together and the wedding and this big massive speech, and you have them kind of wanting to kill each other and having different plans in order to try and kill each other, and both of them either hire security teams or actual assassinators to try and kill each other. And I think that generally the whole idea, as I say, is a little bit of fun, and by the very end I didn't really expect any cold-blooded murder, not gonna lie. I think that I kind of expected them to come together at the very end and kind of actually like each other, which did kind of happen, but at the same time I like the way that the Doctor and the companions actually got involved within this story, and naturally with it being Doctor Who, the companions do get split off to get the Fifth Doctor and Nessa in the side of the Duke himself, and get Adric and Tegan that are with the Duchess, because they've kind of been split across this line that essentially splits the whole castle where they live. And then both of them have been hired as either the security guards of the Duchess, being Adric and Tegan, and then you have Nessa and the Doctor that are going to be the assassinators, meaning that both of them technically need to stop each other. And it's a little bit of a massive game really, because only the actual viewer knows what's going down, only the actual listener understands that, hang on, this whole thing is basically a massive joke, because they're basically going to try and stop each other. And immediately when you actually realise, and when the companions realise what they're trying to do, they will notice that, oh, nothing actually needs to happen, because the Doctor isn't going to assassinate the Duchess and they are definitely not going to need to protect anybody. I think that is the fun idea for this one, because the viewer actually knows a little bit more, and something which that is played with in Doctor Who these days. I think definitely played within modern media quite a lot, however not done within classic Doctor Who. I think that Doctor Who definitely fixes to this rather odd format of either the Doctor knows quite a lot of information and the viewers don't know, and you need to ask questions, and it is very rarely that the actual viewer knows more than the actual characters within the actual story. And yeah, I did quite like that. It adds a little bit of a different alteration to the theme of this episode. Serio, wasn't that based around a relationship? Turns out that this story has a little bit more depth than I was first assuming, because I've just been drinking my tea by just reading through my notes, and I realised that the actual planet that this episode is based on is called Cesario Prime. I think that's how you pronounce it. Probably isn't. However, I realised that Big Finish did a release last year called Cesario, which I do believe is a sort of more historical, non-Doctor Who story. It's completely non-Doctor Who related. I don't like the King Lear that they've done very recently, so I did a little bit of research into this. And I simply typed in on Google Cesario relationship, and then the first thing that came up was Caesar and with Pompey. So I'm guessing that this whole thing is basically a little bit of a twist on the idea of this old historical relationship, which ties in very nicely with the idea that this episode is actually based on a rather historical looking planet. See, I think that this is basically a massive comedy romp, really. As I say, it is very theatrical. The way actors actually want to kill each other, but at the same time are having a little bit of fun with it. I think that especially the Duchess has some really good lines. There's this wonderful moment in the early half of the story where they are wanting to blow up the massive sort of parade ship that she's going to be coming on, and the Doctor with his sort of assassination drone comes along and he shoots it by accident, or somebody actually shoots it instead of the Doctor, by hits the actual spaceship thing, and then that crashes with the Duchess on board. Of course she does survive, and she's sad that she's still alive, and she's sad that the spaceship isn't exactly very damaged in any way. She'll go into the spaceship again and actually make the spaceship blow up to create a little bit more of a loud bang, because that'll be excellent for the publicity. So it's basically the idea of celebrities and how they have this relationship, a little bit like celebrities and how they have this relationship throughout the media and with the normal people. They want to kind of portray certain things in the way that this is portrayed through the media to kind of get the most shock. And the main idea for this one is the way that the Doctor has this plan with the Duchess where he's going to assassinate her. However, they're going to use this hologram that is then going to shoot her, or shoot the hologram to make it look like she's been shot, and then a few days later she's going to appear and be like, I survived, it's a miracle, it's this royal thing that's happened, amazing, when in reality she can't in fact keep out the spotlight for more than 10 minutes. So it's the main idea of popularity returning and coming back, and kind of the relationship between celebrities and sort of the more normal people, normal peasant people on this planet, I guess it'll be, considering that this is now a big massive castle, I'm presuming. So yeah, I do like the idea that this series kind of has a historical theme. I think this whole serial is kind of based around the idea of this historic aspect, however, getting it and emphasising it and putting it into a more alien perspective and going, what if we made this relationship about killing people, and then this relationship sort of blows all out of proportion and you hire sort of this massive death ray, an alien race that is expert at assassinating people from out of space to go and do your dirty work for you. And I do quite like that. I think that that's something you could probably read into, much like how I probably should have before this review started. Because the Doctor and Nessa are the fake assassinators that have been sent out to kill the Duchess. The final act of this story is the fake assassinators actually coming face to face with the real assassinator, that is the person that has actually been spent and brought to the planet to actually kill the Duchess. And because they don't want their ratings damaged, by the very end of the story, regardless of what happens, this assassinator wants to kill the Duchess in order to not damage their ratings and their reputation. I do quite like that idea, once again based around the idea of popularity, and even though the Duchess wants his popularity and fame and all the people around her to kind of like her and appreciate her, at the same time you've got this assassinator that kills people in cold blood, but they still want to be liked by people because they want their reviews to be decent and they don't want to sort of go uncompleted. And I do quite like that. And there is a moment at the very end of this story where the Doctor actually has this rather dark moment whilst holding a gun, and you do think, has the Doctor just killed this person in cold blood? But I think that at the very end of this story, when you expect this mass slaughter, you kind of think, hang on, no, it kind of goes against the themes of this story and changes it a little bit, and I do quite like that. And naturally this episode maybe ends how you kind of expect it, but at the same time maybe not how you expect it. And me naturally being the Doctor Who fan that I am, that likes the more darker story, it would have been nice to maybe see this episode end in a nobody wins mass slaughter situation, but at the same time, as I say, it sort of goes against the actual theme and aim of the story. So I think that this episode is definitely one of which that won't go down in Big Finish history as a amazing episode that everybody much listened to. It's definitely not going to be a Holy Terror, Jubilee or Spare Parts or Chimes of Midnight. It's not going to be a notorious one. However, at the same time, I think that this episode is kind of in its own little country section of Doctor Who, where it's like, what if Doctor Who in the 1980s went a little bit more theatrical, a little bit more fun? What if we kind of just let the reins go for an hour or 2 hours, I guess, in the case of this story, and it goes and does a rather fun fairy tale kingdom-ish theme, as hence by the title. It's a little bit medieval, however, a planet that's medieval with more technological advances, and yeah, it's just a little bit fun at the end of it. So yeah, if you're somebody that is looking for a slightly different part of Doctor Who, if you like the relationship between the companions and the Doctor of this era of Doctor Who, then I definitely recommend this release. But I think that this episode is definitely not going to be enjoyed by everybody. If you like the more serious kind of story, basically if you like the more traditional Big Finish that is a little bit more 1 to 50 range, a little bit more darker, more morals behind it, more death, more mass slaughter, more threats, more alien invasion kind of stuff, then this episode probably isn't for you, as I say, because it is a little bit more of let's let the reins go and kind of just play over it and have a little bit of fun for 2 hours. So yeah, it is a little bit of a more comfy episode of Doctor Who that is a little bit more for that theatrical audience that just wants a little bit of fun. But at the same time, it's an interesting idea, and I definitely respect Robert Kahn and Tom Salinsky for actually contributing this idea for Doctor Who. And considering that this is probably their first co-written episode together, let alone an actual story from either of them, I think that this is a rather strong start for them. Could be very easy to go with a safe option, however, no, they've gone and sort of plummeted into their own area of Doctor Who, so yeah, I do respect them for that. It's just kind of nice to see something different in the Big Finish catalogue. And next time, we have another episode coming out, which I do believe is a little bit of a ghostly one. I'm going to look now. 4 February 2018 is of course called Ghost Walk, and it's run by James Goss, and it is directed by Barnaby Edwards. And judging by the idea of the cover for this one, it is literally about hauntings and ghost walks, so I'm very much looking forward to see what that episode brings. I'm hoping that maybe compared to this one, it's going to be a little bit more of a ghostly, sort of horrific story. That'll be quite fun, because I think that definitely the 5th Doctor era needs a little bit more of that darkness and a little bit more of that grittiness. But yeah, overall for this release, a little bit of a fun one that maybe for a rather Marmite audience. So thanks for watching this review. More reviews will be on the way soon from Big Finish and many other areas of Doctor Who, and I guess I'll see you all in the next video, whatever that may be. Thanks for watching, so I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.